Hello, Internet. Welcome back to another episode of the Experimental Cataclysm. Now, it's been really a couple months since we've had a proper episode, and thankfully, with the 0.E release, we're finally getting more content features and things like that, whereas before it was primarily bug fixes and whatnot. Don't play with your pen while you're recording. So we're going to be doing this. Since the last show that we've done a real proper show, we've had maybe an influx of 150 subscribers or so over the last couple of months. So if you're not familiar, the Experimental Cataclysm series is a series where I go over some of the changes that have come to the experimental version of Cataclysm over the last couple of weeks. Primarily, I focus on new content, starting scenarios, monsters, locations, things like that. New mechanics when they come up. We talked about crouching when it was released and gave a brief tutorial on crouching at the time of the release. New mechanics, we went over. My most popular video is probably the video about the autoclave system and how to sterilize CBMs. So I focus on a lot of that stuff. I usually skip the bug fixes. Some features are not that significant, things like that. So this by all means is not an all-inclusive review of every change that has come over the last couple of weeks, but it's the stuff that jumped out at me, the stuff that I like to see, and then we, of course, will talk about major mechanics when they come down. So this week, there are a couple things that some people would consider spoilery. There's a new monster, there's a new location, and sometimes people like finding that stuff out for themselves. In the description down below, there should be timestamps, and I usually do not name the things in the timestamp, so I'm not going to name the creature. I'll just put new monster. So if you want to skip, go ahead and check those timestamps down below. For everyone else, let's jump into it. Some unpleasant business to deal with first. So some of you may be aware, there was previously on Discord, there is the developer Discord, which is the official Discord of Cataclysm. You can find a link to that on the forums, on the Cataclysm forums will have a link to that. I'll try to link that in the description down below. That is the official Cataclysm Discord server. I don't spend a lot of time there because it's very development focused, which is something that, although I like to keep an eye on, is something I'm not really interested in most of the time. No disrespect, the dev team is great, and that forum or the Discord there is fine, but that's not really where I spend my time. Secondarily, there was a fan Discord, which is pretty popular. I think it had around 5,000 members. And I'm not going to go into a ton of detail. It was drama, and some people hate hearing about drama. But essentially, the owner of that server made some really poor decisions, in my opinion. Put someone in power who should not have been in power, which led to a huge defection of the moderators. Some of the community members, myself included, I bailed almost immediately when I saw what was happening. And it just was, it's not good for the community. And because of that, one of the previous moderators and members of the community, someone who's contributed to the game, I don't want to call you out by name. I don't know if you'd be comfortable. I should have asked you if you'd be comfortable being called out by name. But someone in the community decided, you know what, this is bad for us as community members. We're going to set up a new fan Discord where it's going to be run by, sane and decent people. I like and respect the person who's running the new Discord. And within a few hours of this kind of major defection and just general change to the way things were running, there was a new Discord set up. And I just wanted to shout it out. There will be a link in the description down below. It's very small at the moment. We have maybe 150 members, and I would encourage you to join up. I spend time there usually in the evenings when I'm editing videos. So if you were interested in seeing or communicating with me, I'm frequently there. And if not, it's just a place where you can safely go and talk to other community members, get your questions answered, get help, things like that. So link in the description down below, invites in the description down below to those two servers. And I just wanted to take a moment and specifically thank the people who set this up, because basically I went to work. Bad things happened while I was at work. I worked maybe 4.5 hours that day. And by the time I came home from work, all this bad stuff had happened, and there was already a new Discord set up. Because members of the community and even members of the dev team all came together to get this set up. The dev team was helping with the bots and things like that. And, I've been parts of lots of different organizations in my life, lots of different groups in my life. And usually when something like this happens, historically what I've seen is that people fracture even further. they turn on each other, there's a lot of bitterness, and then everything falls apart. To my surprise, that is not what happened with this whole situation. The community banded together, came together, and now there is a safe and comfortable place for us to spend our time. And I just wanted to shout that out because I think it's really rare that people care about communities like that. I think so often it becomes a blaming game and hating each other and things like that. So really was just psyched to see that. And I'm proud to be part of a community that looks after each other. You know, I'm proud of the people who stepped up and did something about it. Anyway, let's not go too much more. It's been several minutes. There'll be links in the description down below to the various Discords. I am in the new community Discord. I would encourage you to come there if you're looking for a safe and comfortable place that you can talk about Cataclysm or spend time socializing with other members of the community. So let's get into the show proper. This is, if you're not familiar, this is GitHub. We're going to look at the PRs individually, and then if there's stuff to look at in the game, we will start up the game and we'll have a look. So for now, first thing is to remove quantum solar panels. This is by Ember. Quantum solar panels, if you don't know, were just basically really powerful solar panels. And the justification for this is that they're a little sci-fi. They're not really on par with current technologies. They're just a little bit, not nonsense, but they're not really a good fit for Cataclysm, and so they were removed. Now, I'm pretty sure this is going to get picked up by Aftershock. Aftershock tends to be a catch-all for these things. If you don't know, Aftershock is a mod that tends to catch all of the outdated kind of removed sci-fi stuff. So it seems really likely that the quantum solar panels are going to make an appearance there. I don't know. I'm fine with this change. I just thought I'd mention it. It's been a long time since I've seen anything other than standard solar panels anyway. So I don't think they were particularly common. But yeah, just thought I'd mention it because I'm sure some of you use them. Next, we have the Random Graves Map Extra. This is exactly what it sounds like. Map Extras, if you're not familiar, are things like the body drops, the drug deal body drops, I guess supply drops with the crates that you will find just deployed somewhere that tend to contain supplies. There are the old minefields used to be the map extras, things like that. Map extras are just things that spawn pretty much anywhere in the world. And this adds basically just graves, right? It's just a location that adds a grave, and it will give a little, headstone, that kind of thing. Pretty simple as far as things go, pretty straightforward. But it's just one of those things that helps flesh out the world, and I always really like stuff like that. So, yeah, looks like it's just a couple graves. Thought I'd mention it. Seemed pretty neat to me. That's from Night, of course. Next, from WAP Caplet, we have add subway maps. Essentially, there were a lot of maps in the game that reveal various things, but there was never really a subway map, even though subway maps are pretty common in real life. So this just adds a map to the game that will reveal subway stations as well as the underground connectors of those subway stations. I think this is pretty cool. Was surprised nobody had ever thought of this before or taken the time to input that. So that's pretty cool. So you're going to start finding subway maps around in the game. Seems pretty valuable actually now that there are labs in these subway systems. So I'm really surprised that, again, just that no one had ever done this. So I thought this was pretty cool. And it's always nice when we get new maps because it adds variety to the maps. I think in my current Let's Play, we found about 6 road maps for the same town, and I'm just always excited when I find something that's not a road map. So, next we have Explosives Disassembly from Brian Otten. This is essentially allows you to deconstruct various ammunition for more sensible deconstruction items. So previously, when you would deconstruct, say, an explosive, it would give you, pure RDX crystals, which is not how that works. And it currently can only be used in making the 60-liter RDX barrel explosive. So obviously not that useful in the confines of the game. This adds a few different things. It adds composition B, impact and delay fuses, the ability to disassemble all launcher ammo, 120mm tank rounds, adds a recipe using composition B, which I'm not sure how many recipes there are that will be using this, but in the future it's something that makes sense that we would be using, and then just some other basic stuff. So now when you deconstruct explosives, they should give you more viable things in return. In fact, here we can see the disassembly materials for these items. That just makes a little bit more sense than having RDX deconstruct. So hopefully this incentivizes a little bit more deconstruction, because every now and then you'll find a tank shell of some sort and really there's nothing to be done with it because we don't have these tank guns in the game so much. It's not like I'm going to make a tank and use them. So the fact that you can get anything out of them that might even be remotely valuable, it seems like a good idea to me. So thought I would point this out, and hopefully that incentivizes some of you to do something with all this explosive material. Next, we have refrigerated 60-liter tanks from Mail Clips, or Mail Eclipse, I don't know. And essentially this just functions as a refrigerator but for fluids. So we've had refrigerators and freezers in the game for quite a while now. They allow you to cool and or freeze various food items to reduce their, or to increase their shelf life. Sometimes, I guess, frozen is indefinite. And this adds a tank, which is just a vehicle part, pretty straightforward, just a tank in your vehicle, presumably that drains power and refrigerates the fluid in that tank. And they specifically mention here about milk, which is something that I know more and more players are taking advantage of. They're milking their cows and using that as sustenance. So it makes sense to me that a 60-liter refrigerated tank would be added to the game. I don't know if there are plans to add smaller tanks or not. 60-liter is the pretty standardized tank size that we use the most. I don't know. Maybe it requires a large tank in order to function. I don't know if we could put a 10-liter or whatever the jerry... What are the jerry cans? No, there's 10-liter... It doesn't matter. Anyway, I don't know if it has to be a certain size to really be properly refrigerated, or if it's something that would make sense for smaller tanks, but hopefully smaller tanks follow up after this as well, just for diversity and inclusiveness. But yeah, I thought some of you would be interested. I really do. I hear a lot of people who are basically drinking milk all the time because they now have cows. So seems like a pretty valuable thing that people will be interested in. Next, cooking stuff has been getting reworked over the course of, well, probably a while it will be reworked. But essentially, this is going to rework the auto-learned recipes. They're going to be expanding the books that are in the game, and part of that includes removing certain previously auto-learned recipes and placing them in books. And this is the first bit of that. Now, I did not look at what specific recipes have been changed, but some cooking recipes are going to start disappearing from the auto-learn list and start making an appearance in various books. So it looks like making vinegar is one that has been transferred to a book. Looks like there is a dairy book, so presumably, I mean, probably not butter, because butter is pretty straightforward, but, you know, lactose-specific book seems like is what I'm seeing here. I'm not really seeing anything else that jumps out at me. I'm sure there probably are. I still have a hard time reading PRs and things, so don't hate me. So, but it looks like the dairy book and the vinegar book. Again, this is something we're going to be seeing more and more as we look around at Cataclysm in the near future, because a lot of new books are being added. There's going to be a little bit more granularity to books, the range of levels that they can give you, as well as the recipes. This is a part of a major rework to crafting and things like that. So definitely going to keep an eye on that, and you should as well, because you're going to start... I imagine this will lead to some frustration, people not understanding that it's not auto-learned before. And again, there are a lot of recipes in Cataclysm that you would think should be auto-learned but aren't. Now, cooking is pretty straightforward. You know, if cooking is one of those things that a lot of people rely on recipes. So the concept of just auto-learning how to make, say, lasagna seems pretty complicated. Now, actually, the lasagna is not that hard to make, but if you take some random Joe who doesn't cook and ask him to make a lasagna, he's probably not going to do a very good job. So it's kind of a tricky spot with food. There are a lot of recipes in other skills that I think should not be in books, but are. You know, we often talk about, like, pine needle tea really shouldn't be in a book, in my opinion. In my tutorial Let's Play, we talked about pickaxes being in a book-only recipe, which doesn't make sense to me. It's a very straightforward tool that mankind has been using forever, so it doesn't strike me as that difficult when, you know, you can make other stuff without a book pretty easily. So going to be some large reworks to that kind of stuff, and hopefully that comes more in line with some sensible things. Now, most of it is sensible. I don't want you to think I'm bad-mouthing everything, but there are definitely things that are outliers that need to be addressed, and hopefully some of this is going to take care of that. So we've talked about a lot of the minor stuff. Let's talk about some of the bigger stuff that I'm more excited about. First and foremost, we have a new monster. This is a SWAT zombie. There are references in the game to SWAT zombies, and there is SWAT armor that exists in the game, but there were never SWAT zombies. So Meow Mix, maybe, has taken it upon themselves to add a SWAT zombie to the game. Pretty straightforward adding a creature to the game. They're going to drop basic SWAT type stuff, and including the SWAT armor, which I'm not actually seeing there. There it is, SWAT armor. Thought there was a SWAT helmet as well. But basic, police armored gear, if they were going to serve a warrant or something and they would mount up, or if it's actually a SWAT team member, I'm not really sure. Because some of it has the Kevlar vest. Maybe they're not all SWAT officers per se. But anyway, they're geared up and they're ready to go. And it's been added to the game. Let's take a look at their stats and stuff. Looks pretty basic as far as I can tell. The HP and speed are pretty much what you would expect from your standard zombie or tough zombie. Melee die, it seems like it's going to be pretty good at hitting you. The damage isn't super exceptional, but the melee skill of 6 is pretty high for a base level zombie. Basic day and night vision, nothing to report there. And then that doesn't matter. Let's look at their special attacks. I saw there was something changed. Yeah, pretty basic. The scratch frequency is what you would expect. The grab frequency is pretty much what you would expect. So it's not super concerning, in my opinion. They do have armor. I should have mentioned the armor. If we look at their armor, their bash and cut armor is high. I mean, it's not noticeable. But this should still be not really a problem for someone in the late early mid game should be fine. I mean, certainly less than I was gonna say it's less than a zombie soldier, which is correct. It's slightly less bash and considerably less cut damage protection than is on a zombie soldier, which zombie soldier is probably the scariest, hardest creature you're gonna meet on day one from the zombie side of things. So SWAT zombie, a little less impressive than the soldier zombie, but is still going to be something that you're going to have some difficulty with if you're using pretty early game weapons. That said, they, just like the soldier zombies, seem to have some pretty good loot on them, so it can be pretty valuable for you to clear them early. Specifically, the armor that they drop is something you would probably be interested in, and it looks like they carry 9mm weapons, which is not super amazing, but compared to the zombie soldiers 5.56, which is considerably more valuable. But hey, if it's the early game and you can reliably find a gun from just killing a SWAT zombie, that's great. And it looks like they're not on every person, because this is the loot for 8 enemies and there's only 3 guns. So not a guarantee to drop a gun, but definitely something to keep an eye on. So anyway, let's move on. And I should mention that the zombie SWAT officer is currently looking like it has the looks like flag to make it look like the cop zombie. So if you see a cop zombie sprite, make sure you check and verify that it is a cop zombie versus a SWAT zombie, because they will be different levels of difficulty. Definitely something to keep an eye on, although the tile set people tend to keep up with new monsters pretty well, so shouldn't be long before it has its own sprite. Next, we have a new starting scenario. We have a crazy party and new starting profession, frat boy and sorority girl. This specifically creates a new scenario that will start you at a private resort. I have not been to a private resort in Cataclysm yet, so I think I'm going to open the game and take a look at what that is. And then it just seems pretty basic to me. The frat boy and girl thing is not super interesting to me. This reminded me of Dead Island. I don't know if you ever played Dead Island. You basically get drunk, wake up, and there's a zombie apocalypse in this kind of fancy resort. So it reminded me of that. So let's pop over to the game and just see what the resort looks like. Okay, so new challenge or new scenario. We're looking for crazy party scenario. Costs 0 points. It starts you at a private resort, and we'll pop forward here into our profession. Weird. Oh, there's the frat boy. I was going to say frat boy and frat girl were the additional profession. You'll see here, law submissive, Law submissive is how you would say that if you spoke English. Ballroom dancer, lawyer, frat boy, gangster, career politician, or bionic gangster. So, yeah, interesting assortment. Frat boy is the new class, and frat girl, sorority girl. Speaking, driving, basic clothing, gold watch, some water, money bundle, and starts with a sports car. That's interesting. There was a change at some point that allowed you to attach vehicles to professions, so I thought that was pretty cool. I don't know when that happened, so I didn't talk about it at the time. And we'll just jump into the game. Yes. Just jump into the game. See what this private resort looks like. You thought things couldn't get any worse when the cops came over to bust your wild party, even though you booked it at a private resort. When the guests started fighting with the police, you tried to get them to calm down, only to find out that they hungered for more, like flesh and brains. So we're going to take a look at this resort here. Looks very similar to an apartment building or motel, only much more tightly packed. Seems to be a pretty large area. How large is the resort? Looks like a 3x3. Let's get down to the ground floor here. It's interesting that it starts you with a sports car, but starts you on the second floor where you could not possibly be near the sports car. Let's teleport. We're going to fall if we do that, aren't we? Yeah, let's get downstairs. Teleport. Oh, we don't have space for the clairvoyance artifact. That's okay. Just pop over here, go downstairs. There's a sleek zombie in the way. Of course there is. Of course there is. Just drop me. Okay. Spawn clairvoyance artifact. Oh my goodness, with the zombies. Okay. Yeah, I've never seen a resort before. I kind of thought it would be on an island. It's not. Oh, and it's not 3x3. It's much larger than that. Interesting. So it's more like, I don't know, a country club sort of thing. Private resort. It's interesting. I've never been here before. I don't think this PR added it. I believe it was added previously, and we probably did talk about it briefly, but I didn't really look at it in detail. I usually don't because I don't like being super spoilery, but pretty much what you would expect. Maybe some gambling machines. Slot machines, yes, of course. Anyway, it starts you in a private resort, which seems to be just jam-packed with friggin' zombies. Yeah. I was just going to look at the cops and see if there was possibly a SWAT officer that we had just discussed previously. Does not look like it. Looks like they're all zombie cops. But yeah, new stuff. New scenario seems interesting. Normally, when new scenarios come, I devote a series to them on the channel. I don't really feel the need to do that with this particular one. There's no real gimmick to it. There's nothing that really jumps out at me other than it reminds me of Dead Island. So, yeah, new starting scenario and profession. Next, we have a new location called Luna Park. This is from Night. I don't think I called out the last person by name, and I like to do that. So this was from Count Alex. Thank you, Count Alex, for your contribution. Next is Luna Park from Night, and it's basically just a small little park. Nothing really exceptional here. Has a little playground for children. Has a railway track. I guess like a little ride. I'm not really sure what Luna Park is, but you know, it's a park with a little train tracks and really nothing else of note. Looks like some child zombies will spawn here. Some zombies will spawn here, which makes sense. Pretty basic as far as a loot location. Really not anything that jumps out at me. Some vending machines. Mostly it's just for flavor, which is perfectly fine. Things like this build the world around us, and yeah, I like it. It's cool, but not much to say about it. But it's a new location. New locations are always very welcome, in my opinion. Next, from Jay, by the way, we have the initial bare bones implementation of achievements, and this is exactly really what you think it is. It's going to add achievements to Cataclysm. Now, that's not what it did. All it did was add the basic foundation of that, but I'm very excited for the prospect of achievements being in the game, having something to work towards. Now, I'm a big fan of achievements, really since Xbox 360, I think, when they were first implemented pretty majorly. I don't think Steam was doing it at the time. Achievements were pretty unheard of, and as a video game player, which I'm guessing most of you are, it's nice to have something to work towards. Oftentimes, video games are not rewarding because you don't actually. Video games are like, how do I want to say this? Video games give you a false sense of progression when you're not actually doing anything constructive. And that always makes me feel kind of bad because I know that I could be spending my time doing something a little bit more productive. Achievements, for whatever reason, make me feel better about that. When I have something and I can say, okay, well, I did all this work. Why did I do this? Well, I got an achievement out of it. I actually got a little pop-up that says, hey, great job, and gave me 6 points, and I felt so good about myself. And there's just something about achievements that make me feel better about playing a lot of video games. They probably shouldn't, but they do. So I'm excited to see what the implementation of achievements will look like. This is just the basic stuff that lets you... It's the foundational stuff. It's not even... It doesn't add achievements to the game. It just adds the setup so that achievements can be added later. But I wanted to shout it out because I didn't know this was something people were interested in. And then here, Serge made a little mock-up of what it might look like with a graphical pop-up and things, which is pretty neat. I don't know if they'll go that route, but I think it's a cute thing to do. So, yeah, very excited to see where that goes and what exactly the achievements in Cataclysm would look like, because Cataclysm is an open-ended game that a lot of people get bored with as they progress. I myself, I can't remember the last time I lived into the fall in the game, just because I lose interest in characters once you kind of have everything and I want to move on. If I had achievements to work on, I would be more inclined to play my characters for longer, and I gotta imagine that other people feel that way as well. So pretty cool. Like the idea. Hopefully it becomes something great for the community at large. So I like the idea of achievements. Hopefully that develops into something interesting, and I think this is good. This is good for us. So pretty cool. And then finally, from Mr. David P.W. Brown himself, the man who brought you auto walking and auto driving, we now have flyable helicopters properly released into the Cataclysm. It's hard for me to talk about this because I have very little interest in helicopters. I don't really think it's complicated. Okay, I get a lot of flack for it. I think that it's really, really cool that they added helicopters to the game. I think it's super awesome and that a lot of people will have fun with it. But for me personally, I'm not that interested. I've always been of the opinion that the characters I play in Cataclysm, don't have the expertise necessary to fly a helicopter. They're not going to be able to learn on the fly, and I just don't like the idea of my generic character being able to fly a helicopter. So for me personally, I am not very interested in this. It's made it hard for me to be excited for it. I think it's a very cool thing, and I think there are tons of people who absolutely love the idea of being able to fly a helicopter, or potentially one day build their own, through modding and stuff. And so I have not looked into what it takes to fly a helicopter in the game. I have not looked into what the helicopters even look like in the game. I've done nothing in the way of research for this. I just wanted to point out that it existed. Now, I missed this PR when it came out, when it got merged, because really it's from back in September, and it was not merged until, like a week ago, I think. 14 days ago, looks like. No, merged 12 days ago. So has been, it was under my radar. I didn't even know it happened. I'm not super interested in learning about it. I'm sure people expect me to make a tutorial about it. I don't know if I'm going to. I'm sure Vorm probably will at some point. But for now, I'm just not super interested. But I wanted to at least alert you to the fact that helicopters have been added to the game. This includes vehicle parts specifically for helicopters, like rotors. And then more importantly, the main thing you want to know probably is that there is no flying skill. Basically, it's a trait that you take at character generation, which it should say somewhere here what the name of it is, I thought. Flying skill, no, looking for... but basically, there's currently no way to learn this skill in the game. As far as I know, you have to take it at character generation, or it has to be part of a profession that you take. So if you take a pilot, I guess you probably get the flying ability. So let's try creating a new character here on that world I just created. And there's going to be a ton of pop-ups about broken mods. Ignore those. So character generation is the only time you can take the piloting quote-unquote skill. It's not actually a skill, it's a trait, or mutation is how they handle things. So we're looking for the helicopter pilot. We're looking for the helicopter pilot trait. Actually, I don't think you can take just the helicopter pilot trait. It's not listed here. So it may only be available if you start with a profession that has that trait. Because here it says helicopter pilot. So forgive me, I guess it's not a trait you can take. It's a profession related trait, so you would have to take a profession. I'm not sure where helicopters will spawn in the game. I'm not sure really about any of that. I have not done the research. All I've done is say, hey, helicopters exist. Go ahead and figure that out for yourselves. I'm not super interested. So, not to discount the work that David P.W. Brown, and I'm guessing probably Mark helped, with he did a lot of vehicle stuff previously. I don't know who all worked on this, but David P.W. Brown is the name on the PR, so props to you. And helicopters have been added to the game. I don't know what the range of their functionality is. I'm sure it's still a work in progress. I've heard a lot of things about people crashing and having a really hard time flying them, so I don't think they're fully worked out with all the kinks yet, but they exist in the game, and I know that that's something a lot of people were excited about, so I just wanted to touch on it briefly. And I guess that's going to be it for the show. I'll be honest, I'm not super thrilled with how this went. This is my first experimental Cataclysm video really in a couple of months. Definitely have to get back into the swing of it, get a little bit more coherent, and do a little bit more research, but I think it's fine. Again, the links to the Discord groups will be in the description down below, as well as timestamps in the description down below. For now, just thanks for watching. Hopefully everything went smoothly. Hopefully this was informative. If I missed something that's like a major thing, go ahead and leave me a comment in the description down below. Go ahead and leave me a comment if you thought I did a good or terrible job, because God knows I need the self-esteem boost sometimes. And we'll be back with another episode of the Experimental Cataclysm in the near future, probably in about 2 weeks. So for now, thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed. I'll be back with more soon, and I'll see you next time.